Aloha and welcome to this practice WOD called Project Euler Problem 1. And what you're going to work on for this particular WOD is just basically getting started with IntelliJ IDEA and doing a little very simple Java programming and practicing the way you do WODs. And that will speed up your time and also give you facility with manipulating repositories and so forth. So before you start this, though, I recommend you go through the Hello World tutorial for IntelliJ and also play the flashcard game so that you start to get familiar with the key bindings for IntelliJ. Obviously, it's best to do actual development to get the key bindings really internalized into your fingers, but doing the flashcard game, I'm hoping, will help you speed that up. Okay, so for this WOD, we're going to do problem 1, and if we bring that up, what we can see is that we're going to sum all the multiples of 3 or 5 below 1,000. So basically we'll have a little loop, counts up to 1,000, checks to see if the counter is equal to 3 or equal to a multiple of 3 or 5. And if it is, we're going to keep another variable called sum that's going to add that up, and then we're going to print it out at the end. Okay, so that looks like what we're going to do, and then Project Euler allows you to register so you can record those problems that you've solved and compete with other people. And it's totally cool if you want to do that. If you don't, that's fine too. Okay, so let's begin, and we'll begin by starting the timer. I use time, THYME, but you can use your stopwatch or whatever. And we're supposed to create an empty GitHub repo called Project Euler 1. So I'll go to GitHub, and I'll create a new repository, and I'll call it Project Euler 1. And I'll add a git ignore for Java, and I'll add a license. And I'm not going to have a README quite yet. We'll do that a little later, but for this, we're not going to worry about it. So we'll create the repo, and then they also want us to clone it to the local computer, and the fastest, simplest way to do that is to press this button, which brings up this, and I am indeed going to want it in a special directory from my ICS 613 project WODs called that. So I'll do clone, and we appear to have what we need for that. So I'll hide this window. And now the next thing we want to do is create an IntelliJ Java project within the repo directory. So I'll bring up IntelliJ, and once again this should load 5 to 10 seconds max. And so we'll say create a new project, and we'll say next, and the location of this is going to be in project hosting 613, the same place where I cloned that directory. And we'll go, let's just check this more settings. Yeah, that looks all good. So we'll go finish, and here's our project 1. Okay, so let's go back, and we're going to create a Java class called Project Euler 1. The main method should compute the answer and print out to the console. So if we go here, and then we click on the source directory and do a propeller n, we can create a new Java class. We're going to call it Project Euler 1. And sure, let's add it to Git. Okay, and so now we've got this, and we need a main method. So there's that cute little templatey thing in IntelliJ that allows us to get rid of that boilerplate. Now that we're in there, we want to say, what do we want to say? We want to have the sum counter, and then we're going to say for int I equal to 1, I less than, what is it, a less than or less than or equal to? Let's check. It says below 1,000, so it's less than 1,000, I double plus. And then we're going to say, we're going to say if I divided by 3 equals 0. So that's checking if it's a multiple of 3. Or I divided by 5 equals 0. If either of those two things are true, let's put in a bracket so we get the right indentation, then what's it worried about here? And we need to put another set around here. Yeah. That. Okay. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so if either of those two things are true, then what we want to do is say sum plus equals I. Okay, so there's our program, and we can run it, see what happens. Well, actually, it's not going to be that interesting to run it because we forgot to print out the value, but we can run it, and anyway, it says, you know, blah, blah. So actually what we want to do is we want to say system.out.println sum. So if we now run that version, then what we see is we get a number. Okay, but the question is, well, you know, is that actually the right answer? A little later we'll get into testing and we'll talk about ways that we can verify that our programs do the right thing. But one thing we could do is we could use, at this point, we could use some print statements to see what the program's doing. So let's do system.out.printf, and this is kind of a nice, you should get comfortable using printf, it's really useful. And for that we'll say I equals %d, sum equals %d, %d, and we put a new line in, and then following that we give the arguments to these %d's, so we'll say I and sum. And now if we run again, what we find is that we're going to print out stuff. Let's go back up to the beginning. And so we see once we get to I equals 3, the sum is being incremented. And then when we get to 5, the sum is incremented. And we get to 6, the sum is incremented with the I. And then the next one is 9, it gets incremented. So far, through the first 10 numbers, it appears to be doing the right things. So let's kind of declare victory for now. We'll keep that print line in the code just in case we want to reference it later for some reason. But now the program's just going to satisfy the requirements, and that when it runs, it's going to print out, whoops, we don't really need that dialog, we need this one. Okay. It's just going to print out the answer, 233, 168. So we assume that's the right answer. And let's go back to our project. So we informally tested it. Let's commit it to GitHub and check that it's there. So to do that, I'll go back to GitHub. I'll say finished WAD, commit and sync. Okay, there it is. And if we go to, I believe, where is it? Branches? Where is it? Here. View on GitHub. So we can go here, and now we can see that our WAD is, the code is in there, and you can notice that basically the source folder is at top level. You don't want to have just one top level directory called Project Euler 1. That's the name of the repo. So you have the source codes kind of embedded in there. And at this point we will stop the timer at 7:35. So we'll call it an 8-minute WAD. Because we checked the code is now on GitHub, and that's all we have to do for this. So what I would suggest is if you can't get it under 10 minutes, you should really go back and try this again. Delete your GitHub repo, delete your IntelliJ IDEA project, just start over from scratch. Running through the mechanics is going to be very helpful to you, and you'll speed up over the course of the semester. All right, thanks.